Hello everyone. Today, the first weekend of September, we began our September preaching series, the title of which is Rediscovering Our Why. We've advertised this series quite a bit, and the bulletin this week has as its front page an outline of this first week. Why? The power of why that gives us purpose. And if you turn to the third page in the bulletin, you will see information, questions about the importance of why. And so over the next 4 weeks, we will look at why we do things, why we follow Jesus, why we are part of the church, and why we are meant to be missionary disciples. So, this first Sunday, I asked the question, why are we here? Why are we part of St. Josephat Parish? Why do we do the things we do as Christian disciples of Jesus? Maybe you've given it some thought, maybe you haven't. Maybe it's not crossed your mind at all. Also, how excited are you about being a disciple of Jesus, about belonging to this parish community? Simon Sinek developed this idea of the golden circle. And if you go to our bulletin, it's online too, you will see what that entails. And he developed this by looking at dynamic leaders and thriving organizations and businesses. He also looked at a lot of research done by neuroscientists, and he saw that so often these successful organizations and leaders communicated their why, their core belief, their purpose for existence. They didn't talk about what they did or how they did things, but why they did things. And the neuroscientists gave backing to this idea because they saw that in decision-making, decisions become better when it is driven by purpose and emotion. So have a look at the golden circle in the bulletin. There are, of course, spiritual foundations for this why. If we look at the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 4, verses 33, we read, "With great power the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus. And God's grace was so powerfully at work in them all." Imagine how disappointed the disciples had been when Jesus was crucified. Suddenly they experienced him alive in their midst. And it was that took them out, gave them a sense of purpose as they went to tell others about the risen Lord. If we look through the scriptures, we'll also see that there are many biblical leaders who had a real sense of purpose, mission, who were passionate about what they did. Look at Moses. Sure, he wasn't too excited about God's giving him the mission at the burning bush, but once he was committed to that, he led the people for 40 years, grumbling people sometimes, remember, through the desert to the promised land. He was faithful. He got his purpose. St. Paul, the great apostle to the Gentiles, he suffered all sorts of persecutions. He was imprisoned. He was shipwrecked. But he was passionate about telling others of Jesus. After his experience on the road to Damascus, he was passionate. There's some women too. Ruth, for example. She remained faithful to her adopted people. She didn't go back to her people, she remained. And she, of course, became part of the genealogy of Jesus. Mary, too. Imagine how she must have felt. A young, pregnant, unmarried girl in that time, but she got her purpose, her mission, and so she was faithful. She trusted in God. And of course, Jesus is the supreme example of someone who was committed to what the Father had asked him to do. Yeah, sometimes he wanted to give up, for sure. We know that in the Garden of Gethsemane, he asked for the cup to pass from him, but he was also committed to the will of God. He was passionate about his mission. So, dear friends, how do we take this golden circle and apply it to our parish community? The first thing we have to say is, what is our purpose? What is our mission as the parish of St. Josephat? What are we about? Hopefully it is about sharing Jesus with others, telling of his love, his mercy, his forgiveness. That should be what drives each and every one of us who belong to this community. We should be passionate about serving and reaching out to those around us. So we need to reclaim that why. We need to be sure of that why, that purpose for us. Then the how and the what, those come to us. We've got so many of them already. The what we do is very well known to us. Celebrate Mass, celebrate the sacraments, host Alpha, serve with the hands of mercy. We do so many things that help us to love Jesus and to share his love with others. So the what is usually quite easy. The how, what's in our hearts? How are we doing that? How are we distinguishable from other communities? Is our hospitality warm and welcoming, inviting? Are we willing to grow our faith, to know Jesus? How are we at serving? Is that part of us? Our value. And so the why, the how, the what, really important for us to consider as a community. Once we have a sense of purpose, we have real passion. We have motivation. We have commitment to living as a discipleship parish. And so we need to look and think, are we passionate? Because passion, excitement, enthusiasm draws others, attracts others. If we couldn't be bothered, well, why should anybody else join us? My commitment as your new pastor is that all our decisions, all our focus, programs, everything we do here will be to make the mission, our calling, our purpose visible, that we will be faithful to that, to make Jesus known and loved. That's why I became a priest, to share the love of Jesus with others. And so I'm passionate about that. So I ask you to reflect over this coming week. What is your purpose as a disciple of Jesus? Are you passionate about it? Why do you come to church? Why do you belong to this community? There are so many parishes around us. Why do you want to be here? Why do you want to serve and share your gifts and resources with others? Only when we can answer these questions will we be sure that Jesus and this parish are important to us and meaningful to us.